This evening, another Steve Smith 100, the highlight of the opening day of the second test in the Caribbean. Smith helped the tourists recover from a shaky start with his 9th test century.
He's first against the West Indies, and that is a very, very good innings. Came in at 2 for 16, and a well-deserved 100.
I'm Mark Douglas, and this is Grandstand. Thanks for your company. Steve Smith has again saved the blushes of Australia's batsmen on day one of the second test against the West Indies. Smith scored his 5th century in 6 tests after Jerome Taylor ripped through the Australian top order. No other batsman reached 50, as Jonathan Gould reports.
It's a comforting and familiar sight for Australian cricket fans.
And a well-deserved 100. Outstanding innings from Steve Smith.
It's been a remarkable year for Steve Smith. In the 6 test matches since the start of the Australian summer, he's now scored 5 centuries and is averaging more than 130. He was also Australia's leading run scorer in the World Cup, cementing himself at number 3.
You know, I've really enjoyed the challenge of doing it, and hopefully I can continue scoring runs in that position.
Smith came to the crease in Kingston in familiar circumstances.
Oh, edged and taken, what a start! Another one explodes off the pitch and Warner has gone early. That's what the West Indies wanted.
Australia's top order struggled after being sent in by West Indies captain Dinesh Ramdin. Michael Clarke was given a reprieve when Kemar Roach overstepped.
And that is going to be not out, so that's a big blow now for the West Indies.
Clarke and Smith settled in and the momentum shifted. With the runs flowing, the skipper tried one expansive drive too many, but nothing would deny Steve Smith. Australia's captain in waiting once again producing a century when his country needed it.
That will be his 100. Steve Smith gets his 9th 100. He's first against the West Indies.
Smith and Adam Voges took the score past 200 before Voges was dismissed for the first time in Test cricket.
Edge done gone.
Smith had his own luck before the end of the day, surviving an edge to first slip and a stumping chance. He'll resume with Shane Watson on day 2, looking to build another imposing first innings total. Jonathan Gould, ABC News.
Queensland prop Matt Scott sat out training today with a knee infection, but the Maroons insist he and Billy Slater will be fit to play in next week's State of Origin game against New South Wales in Melbourne. Slater has missed the past 2 games for the Storm as he continues to manage the injury he suffered in April. He says he's in no doubt for Wednesday night, but isn't ruling out the need for shoulder surgery after the game.
I'm only focusing on the next week, and what happens after that, we'll see. But at the moment, next week is my focus and playing the best I can for this team.
The Blues had the day off training in Coffs Harbour before ramping up their preparations with contact sessions tomorrow and Sunday. Origin will have a major impact on round 14 of the NRL, with several stars missing from their club sides. The shortened round begins with the Tigers up against South Sydney tonight. I spoke to former Sharks coach Stuart Raper earlier for his preview of the weekend's action.
Yeah, well, Luke Brooks has been playing up and down so far this year, obviously, in a side that hasn't been playing that great. At the start of the year, we saw him play some great football, scoring some good tries. His running game was excellent. He's always got a good passing game. Jason Taylor's style of football hasn't probably suited him as much, or he's trying to find his way, I should say. And, I think they need to get him in his running football. He's such a dynamic runner of the football, a bit like Sean Johnson, where he can take the line on, and get through. He's got plenty of power and he can score some tries. On the other hand, when you look at the south side, Luke Keary's just been having an outstanding year so far. In a side that's probably been up and down, but they're starting to find some form, the South Sydney Rabbitohs. And last week against the Warriors, he played really well. With Adam Reynolds has been out, hasn't played a lot of football. He's really taken the mantle as the key playmaker for the South Sydney Rabbitohs. And he's a great supporting player. He can set up his play on the back of a very good go forward that the South Sydney can create. That you expect a hell of a lot from Luke Keary.
Now, another game this weekend that could be decided by the halves. On Sunday, the Titans and the Bulldogs. The Bulldogs have been improving. The Titans have some young halves. The Bulldogs young halves too, and plenty of pressure on both pairs.
Yeah, well, that's right. I mean, the Titans, got a victory on the post, last week against the Tigers. And Hayden Caesar is a bit of a man in demand. I think he signed with Canberra. He was everyone wanted him, and he's played some really good football. And Daniel Mortimer is trying to find his niche in that first grade side, and those two really are going to be so important, the way that the Titans play. He's got a good kicking game. Again, he comes up with a lot of points, Hayden Caesar, and a good running game as well. And, he's really strong to the way that the Titans play. On the opposites, Josh Reynolds and Mason Mabai. Last week, they changed the game. With 20 minutes to go, Des Hasler brought off Trent Hodkinson, and obviously that was a tactical move by Des. But bringing Josh Reynolds onto the field, he's such a dynamic player and such an enthusiastic player. Sometimes he gets a little bit over the top and, comes up with some errors or some ill-disciplined play. But both him and Mabai are really dynamic halves. They're probably not structurally as good as Hodkinson, where they, organise the game, but they're a great running game and really competitors. And, that'll make it a lot easier for the Bulldogs.
And just finally, Parramatta and Melbourne Storm doing battle on a Monday night. Melbourne missing their key origin players. Parramatta coming off that shock loss where they led by 24 in the second half against the Cowboys. Where's the key to this game going to be won?
Well, for Parra, they've got to have Chris Sandow, playing good football consistently for 80 minutes. Last week, he did some really good things over the first half, where they were just way in front and running the Cowboys all over. And he can do anything, but he needs to be consistent. He's playing not erratic. He just goes for that big play too many times. He's off contract. He's been told he can go and look for another club. So he's playing for a contract, basically. The Storm, they're missing, their top three, as you said, and that's always a blow around Origin time for Melbourne. But Ryan Hinchcliffe's the one that's really impressed me. He's a bit of a Mr. Fix-It for the Storm. He can play any position. He's tough. He's uncompromising. He's no Cameron Smith. He doesn't have the organisational ability of Cameron Smith, but they're going to really rely on him to step up to the plate.
Stu, great to have you back, and we'll see you again next week.
Thanks, Mark.
After two starring performances, Matthew Dellavedova's come back down to earth in Game 4 of the NBA Finals. Dellavedova's Cleveland Cavaliers started strongly but were ultimately no match for the Golden State Warriors. The Cavs superstar LeBron James crashed into a courtside camera, suffering a head cut after a hard foul committed by the Warriors Australian centre Andrew Bogut in the second quarter. He struggled to get going for the rest of the match. The Warriors' superior depth and three-point shooting proved decisive in the 103-82 victory.
Push it in. Stephen Curry from downtown, and it's a 13-point lead.
The best-of-7 series is now tied at 2-2. The Warriors benched Andrew Bogut at the tip-off, instead starting with Andre Iguodala, who was the team's top scorer with 22.
I think Tim Kawakami asked me if Bogut was starting. I lied. No, I did. I lied. So, I figure I have two press conferences on the day of the game, so I'm asked a lot of strategic questions. So, my options were tell the truth, and I was asked both at shoot around and before the game. So if I tell the truth, it's the equivalent of me knocking on David Blatt's door and say, "Hey, this is what we're going to do." I could evade the question, which would start this, Twitter phenomenon, who's going to start for the Warriors, or I could lie, so I lied. Sorry, but I don't think they hand you the trophy based on morality. They give it to you if you win, so sorry about that.
It's a shortened round of the AFL this weekend with several teams earning a rest. There are still some intriguing matchups, and with his preview of the action, welcome back Sydney Swan, Troy Luff. Troy, thanks for coming back in.
Always a pleasure.
Now, firstly, let's start with Ryan Crowley. Yesterday we learned that he's been suspended for 12 months, backdated for a doping offence, a minor doping offence. He's getting on in his career. Is there any comeback in sight for Ryan Crowley?
It's going to be really tough. It's dated back to the 25th of September, so he's available for selection after the 25th of September. Now, that's either going to be a preliminary file or a grand file for Fremantle, and after missing a full year of football, as good as what he is, he's a former best and fairest when you can't put him in. As far as his career goes, well, he's 31, he'll be 32 at the start of next season, missed a whole year of football. I think the type of player he is, he probably will battle on and he probably will want to go out in his own terms. and maybe push for 1 year. You know, I wish him well. It's unfortunate. It was a painkiller. It wasn't a performance-enhancing drug or anything like that. So, unfortunately for him, the Docker's going so well, but he's going to miss the whole season.
Well, let's have a look at some of the key matchups this weekend, starting with tonight. Port Adelaide up against Geelong. Port have seemingly been improving. Geelong were very good last week. Do you like Port?
Not really, no. I'm a bit of a Geelong fan, got a bit of a man crush on the Cats, I think, and the way that Port Adelaide have been playing is very inconsistent. They started the year as one of the premiership favourites, but they do well against the weaker sides. They've lost against some of the weaker sides. The last 2 weeks they've been building. Ollie Wines has been playing very well. Jay Schulz has been kicking some goals, but they're not doing it up against the top sides. On the other side of the coin, Geelong, they've been building to the old Cats. They're running well. Their possession count has been very high. And since they've had Andrew Mackie back from injury, James Kelly back from injury, it's freed up Harry Taylor. He's been outstanding in the back. He had 33 touches last week. Kelly himself, he also had 30-odd. Corey Enright, he had 25. And for a back line, that's a lot of possessions. All they need is a bag from Tom Hawkins. They've been averaging 8 individual goal kickers a week, and that also helps with their consistency. They've only won back-to-back games twice this season, and I think if Tom Hawkins can kick a bag and their backline can work as well as what it has been, I really do think they're going to upset Port over there. It's a crucial game for both sides. They're both 5-5, 9th and 10th on the ladder, and it's a classic old 8-point game. You win this, you go a couple of games clear, and for me, it's going to be the Cats.
I think that's 50,000 fans there tonight, hoping you're wrong. The Swans up against North Melbourne. Now, North played the Swans for a place in the grand final. The Swans wiped the floor with them.
Yep.
North Melbourne, they've been a bit hit and miss. Are they coming back into form, and are they any match for the Swans?
They're another team that at the start of the year, like Essendon as well, and Port Adelaide, promised so much, but they're just not delivering. They've had a few close losses, but last week against West Coast, they really fought it hard. What they did to the Eagles is tackled. They're averaging only 63 tackles a game. They had 91 last week, which is a high on any team standard. The Swans average about 75. They just did that to Eagles so well, the pressure, it forced them to a very low score. Now, Eagles are the second highest scoring team in the competition. They only scored 75 last week. The thing is with North Melbourne is they don't have enough players getting a lot of ball. They've only got 4 players that average over 20 touches or more. The Swans have 8. And that's led by Brent Harvey, who's going to be turning 38 soon and soon to play his 400th game. They need an across-the-board lift with guys getting more possessions. Their forward line, they don't have enough players kicking a lot of goals. Drew Petrie's a little bit down. Lindsay Thomas, their leading goal scorer, and he's only a small forward. I really do think that if they can improve that, they're a chance. But then you talk about my team, Mark, and the way the Swans have been doing it this year, they've done it tough against Port Adelaide, against Hawthorn, put in it when they had to. Then against the Suns last week, like they did the Carlton the week before, they just do what they need to do. They blow them out of the water early, they get score on the board, they get 50 points in front, and then they take their foot off the accelerator. Buddy Franklin last week bagged another 4. Dan Hanbury had a career-best 42 possessions, and he's really good. And what's also done, Tommy Mitchell into the side is also freed up Josh Kennedy. They relied so much on him in the past. Now Tommy Mitchell averaging 30 touches. Couldn't get a game last year. Now he's getting 30 touches this year. The record for North Melbourne, they've only won twice in the last 10 years against the Swans. Don't see it happening this weekend either.
Now, just get a quick thought from you really quickly because we're running out of time. The Eagles and the Bombers. Is it the Eagles by plenty?
I think Essendon, they're fighting to get back some form. They got belted last week by the Cats. The Eagles lost. I think it's going to be a tough game. Bell Chambers got dropped, and Carlisle's going to have to battle Nick Natanui, but Joe Watson's back for the Bombers. I'll give him a chance, but only just. I think the Eagles back at home.
Troy, thanks for coming in once again. We'll see you again very soon.
No worries, Mark.
Veteran Australian golfer Kari Webb is in contention after the opening round of the Women's PGA Championship. South Korea's Jenny Shin is on top of the leaderboard. Webb is 2 shots back. The 40-year-old had 6 birdies and carded a 5 under 68 in the major tournament that she won 14 years ago.
I felt like I've had some good golf in me for quite some time and I just haven't been doing it. So it was a matter of believing.
Playing on a sponsor's exemption, 17-year-old Canadian Brooke Henderson had an eagle and 5 birdies in her round of 67 to be 1 stroke from the lead. The Matildas say their superior fitness could be a factor when they take on Nigeria at the Women's World Cup in Canada tomorrow. Australia's looking for its first win of the tournament after losing 3-1 to the United States in their first game. Nigeria drew 3-3 with Sweden.
Watching the Sweden game and seeing that they were cramping up in the 60th minute showed a bit of weakness in their fitness. In terms of us, I don't think it was a matter of a lack of fitness for us. I think we're at peak fitness.
Co-captain Claire Polkinghorne is available for selection after missing the first game with a hamstring injury. And that's Grandstand for now. Don't forget you can also watch us on iView or Grandstand Online.